Hey there, darlings. Welcome to the Farmer's Table. I just recorded multiple things when I realized that my new microphone was not plugged in properly. So yeah, tech savviness is definitely not on my repertoire of skills. However, I can cook, and that's what I was trying to share with you today. Welcome to my kitchen. My name's Jess, if you're new here, and if you're not new here, welcome back. I have a really bad habit of falling out of things and making things regularly, like videos for my YouTube channels, and then starting again is always a massive obstacle. It's kind of like a rip the band-aid thing off. And normally if I have a little hiccup, like a mic malfunction, that'll throw me off, but not today. Not today. I am in my kitchen. I'm doing a lot of things, and I wanted to invite you guys in to hang out with me. Just here with Bear. We're having a nice rainy day, and I have a mess of milk to process, as you can see here. I've got some blackberries. This was full yesterday. I made a cobbler last night, but I want to do something with the rest of those. I need to do something with this milk. As you can see, I've pulled the cream off a lot of the jars. A few of them still have cream on them. I may leave that in just so the cheese I'm going to make will be a little more rich. I have some flour I just milled. I told you all about it. You couldn't hear me, so I'll tell you again. And I am about to make breakfast for my boys while I get the cheese going. I'm going to get some bread started. I have a bread machine. You can see it right here. It is the Zojirushi BBPDC20. I don't know if it has a different name than that. I've had this for quite a while now. I've made a video before showing like how to make bread machine bread. That was before I was doing things with fresh milled flour. So today's actually my first day to put fresh milled flour bread in this bread machine. So a confession, which I think many of you probably can relate to this. I am a little bit of an old dog when it comes to new tricks, I'm afraid. I've been making bread from scratch for like 20 years or something like that. Like it's like I'm old enough to be able to say that. Like I have my ways of doing things, and I started learning about freshly milled flour a few years ago. You know, a lot of people are sharing about it. It's getting a little more popular. And I heard people talking about the benefits of it. And I honestly wasn't crazy invested on learning about it because, you know, at that point I've been gluten-free for a few years. And I had more or less made the adjustment to like not miss bread that much. I don't know, for some people you're like, what? How can that be? But I mean, honestly, if you go gluten-free for long enough, like, I have always enjoyed, since being gluten-free, when people are like, here, you can have this gluten-free bagel or this thing. But I never really sought that stuff out. For me, it was just more or less easier to just not eat those kinds of things. And primarily just eat, like, meat and vegetables and fruit. And that's been more or less how I've gone about it. But when I started hearing about the benefits of freshly milled flour, and I know that we're not celiac, we just have had a lot of inflammation issues and things, and in healing my gut, I quit eating gluten and dairy for years. And I have been able to reintroduce some things, and with freshly milled flour, I thought, well, maybe. I mean, if nothing else, I think it'd be better for my family. The problem I was having, being kind of, you know, an old dog trying to learn a new trick, is that all my recipes that I've made for years didn't perform the same with the freshly milled flour. That was very overwhelming to me. And so more or less for like a year and a half or something, I had this mill, and I would use it to make like muffins and the things that like use soft wheat that are just a little bit easier to get right. But for anything that was like yeast and rising and kneading and all of that, I was pretty much just grabbing the same old flour that I've always known how to use, because I wanted to know how to anticipate what it was going to do. Now, last Thanksgiving, our friends, the Marshas, came, and my friend Chrissy does a lot of things with fresh milled flour. And she is a very proficient cook. She shares recipes over on her channel, 9 Little Aussies. They're transplants here to the US from Australia, and I adore them if you don't. She's been on this channel before. Anyway, I love hyping my friends. But when she was here, she helped me cook Thanksgiving. And it was it was truly the easiest Thanksgiving I've ever cooked. You know, I mean, we routinely cook for 30 to 40 people on Thanksgiving. We should kind of collect friends and folks that are around that need a place to go. And I love cooking everything from scratch. It's like my marathon. And people always offer to help, but it's hard if it's people that don't necessarily cook a lot. But Chrissy, literally, I was like, can you make a pie crust? She made a pie crust. Like, there was no discussion, and she makes things honestly better than me. Like, so it was very nice for me. It was very lovely. But she made all of the, like, the pie crusts and the breads and the different things, the rolls that we had. There were a couple other things, the cornbread for the stuffing. She made everything using the mill and just milling the grains. And that was probably the catalyst for me to start using freshly milled, because I just needed to see somebody do it. That has always been how I learn, is like see it in action, and then I'll feel confident enough to try things myself. And then it was literally like, it was all these things kind of collided around the same time. Shortly after that, I started going over to my friend Jody's for a homeschool co-op that she hosts out at her farm, and she's real big on freshly milled flour. So she started listening to like Sue Becker, her podcast, and all the benefits, the health benefits of freshly milled flour, and she kind of converted me to be like, okay, fine, I'll learn a new thing. I will challenge myself to get out of my comfort zone. So for about the last 6 months, I have been increasingly replacing flour. And at this point, you know, I buy my bread flour, well, previously, before converting this, at the US Foods Chef store. Like, I get the 50-pound bags of like the King Arthur's bread flour, and I'm on my last bag, and I'm kind of like telling myself, okay, when this one's over, this is it. The last thing I have really not figured out well is sourdough. I have not really gotten sourdough to work as great with freshly milled. And so that's like my one holdout. My experiment for today is to put this in my bread machine. Jody does hers in her bread machine, and I've read a lot where people do like a hand programmed setting, because the bread machine settings, they say, don't turn out the best loaf. Here's the thing, is that I have Googled, I've read, I don't know that anybody else's settings are going to do exactly what I need. So today I'm actually just putting a loaf in, and I'm just going to bake it on the settings, and it may be a complete flop, but I feel like that'll tell me what I need to know as far as adjusting and manually setting my machine. We have such a tendency to like want to get everything right from the very first time we try it, and honestly I think if we could let that go, we'd probably learn things easier, because honestly, like with this, it would stink if this is a complete flop. Probably the risk is that it will produce a loaf that's too dense, or that has fallen, like it proved too much and then it fell. And like the worst case scenario, I can take that and make breadcrumbs or bread pudding or something. Like it doesn't have to necessarily be a complete waste. Now, it might not be the best sandwich bread, but the risk is low here. I'm not even really risking wasting the ingredients. Now, the recipe that I am using is more or less Sue Becker's basic yeast bread recipe. Here's the book. I actually think I'm going to make a video this coming week talking about like my sandwich rolls and stuff, because I've basically figured out how to take this recipe and do a couple different things with it, and I am tweaking it just a little bit. I've been putting lemon juice in it. That's something Chrissy taught me that helps condition it, make it softer. I'm not going to do that today because this is already pushing the capacity for the machine, and maybe I could have swapped out a little bit of the water for the lemon juice, but usually it ends up just making 2 larger loaves. But since I'm all putting it in one, I'm not going to make that adjustment. This is a mix of hard white and hard red wheat, which I told you guys all of this whenever I was grinding this wheat for my video. It just doesn't have any sound because I messed up. I'm putting a mix in though, because I think it makes the nicest flavor. With the dry ingredients, keep the yeast from touching the wet. I used to use my bread machine all the time when my kids were in school, because I could just I could just fill it up and turn it on before I went to bed, and then I could wake up in the morning and have fresh bread waiting for me to make their sandwiches and stuff. But since we moved back to homeschooling, I mean, it's been a year and a half ago, this thing has not been used nearly as much because I don't have to get up and go anywhere. So I just get up and start the dough and then just go through the process as the day goes on. I do like making bread from scratch and kneading it myself and all of that, but the convenience, especially like today, I have a lot of things I need to get done, and then this afternoon I need to leave and go work on some other stuff. So if I could put bread in the bread machine and my kids can just have it as an autopilot to be able to like make themselves sandwiches, they're old enough at this point to do that, that would be good. I don't know if it's going to work out that way today because I don't know how this is going to be, so we're just going to start it now. I'm going to cook some breakfast. It's actually something I haven't cooked in a long time, but I have a request from my boys and they have a friend here, so I was persuaded. But first I want to start this milk warming up on the stove. I've got some rennet right here. I haven't decided. I need to make a decision. That's where I'm at right now. I'm going to make lasagna for dinner, so I'm kind of leaning towards just making a whole lot of mozzarella and some ricotta because I could use both of those for tonight. That's probably what I need to just go ahead and do. I had thought about making pudding, I had thought about starting yogurt, but really, like, when it comes to making dairy products, especially if you're making something that's not going to age or take a long time, like, you obviously need to have a plan of how you're going to use it. So I'm thinking I'm going to start with the ricotta first. We weaned our calf like a week and a half ago, and our cow, the one that we currently have in milk, we have a few Jersey cows, we call her, not affectionately, we call her Helen the Creamless, because when she has a calf she holds all her cream back and it's literally like this much. You know, she's not the highest producer we have. Like our cow Freya, when she's in milk, she produces like 7 gallons a day or something like that. And Helen is more in the range of like 4 or 5, but still a lot of milk. And when the calf is weaned, we start getting lots of cream, which means we can make butter and ice cream and all the things. When it's winter time, we don't get nearly as much milk. On hay, they don't produce as much, and they don't produce as much cream. And then also when Helen is the one in milk, we rotate them. Freya gives more cream even when she has a calf on. But when all of these things kind of coincide, we have to use store-bought products because we're not making it enough. And I'd already gone through most of the butter I had in the freezer. So I've been kind of counting down the days to when we were going to wean the calf, and I could start like restocking my stores of things, and when I could stop buying the stuff that I'm able to make when we have all of the milk and cream at home. But even though I have been looking forward to that, it has caught me quite off guard. That happens every year. Like springtime, why this still catches me off guard. We've been doing this for over a decade, and every year I'm like, oh gosh, there's so much work to do and so much food to process. So I'm just pouring these together so I can measure and know exactly how much I'm filling up here because the jars aren't full. That's 1 gallon. I'm probably gonna put like 2.5 gallons in here. So even though I skimmed the evident cream off the top of this milk, it's still full fat milk. It's gonna be more than like store-bought whole milk. If I used a cream separator, then at that point you could actually call it skim. Oh, because I'm coming back into milk season where I'm gonna have lots of milk, or I do have lots of milk. I have way more than this that I actually need to process. This is just what I brought in to immediately do something with. I was taking stock of my kitchen and looking at the starters I had and the cultures and all the different things, and kind of gearing back to begin again and using a lot of dairy. And I realized that somewhere over the years, I used to have like a pretty solid collection of really large stock pots. And I know one got lost somehow and did not make it here when we moved to South Carolina. Like I had a really big nice stock pot. And I know another one met a grisly demise recently with some burning things. And it was like an enameled one, and it was already having a few chips in it. So it was kind of like, eh. And then, yeah, that one is no longer with us. So I recognize that this is the only big stock pot I have, and it holds 2.5 gallons of milk. I actually ordered like I think it was a 30 quart stock pot yesterday. So it's real big. But I needed it because making cheese, I need a really big pot. I was watching my friend Ruth Ann Zimmerman yesterday. I was watching her video of cheddar, farmhouse cheddar. I've not made aged cheeses yet. It's just something I haven't gotten into. You do need like somewhere to age them, and what she was showing, which I was actually going to text her today and ask her if they're still using that same setup, but they took a fridge and like converted it. Her husband found this like device that converts a refrigerator's thermostat setting, and they have like a cheese cave fridge that they have made. And that's what we'll have to do. Like, we don't have any cold storage that would work. I think it needs to be in like the 50-degree range, and that's been my big hesitation. All right, so this is now over medium low heat. It's gonna take probably close to an hour for this amount of milk to come up to heat. I want it up to like 195. It just starts to shimmer. It's, you know, you don't want to boil it, but it just brings it up to that heat, and that's when I'll put my acid in, which will force the separation of the curds and whey. True ricotta, like true Italian ricotta, is made from whey. So like if you were to make mozzarella, you can take the whey and then you recook it, and what ricotta is that means recooked. And so you get a very small amount from that because there's not a lot left in it. And it's really sweet, it's really good, delicious. I'm making this to make lasagna, so I'm more or less just trying to make the product that I'm used to buying at the store, which is like a creamy, thicker. It's actually closer to like a farmer's cheese than like a true ricotta, but it's what we're used to having in lasagna, so that's why I'm making it. It's like the easiest cheese to make. I do have a farmhouse cheese recipe, which is more or less the same thing. You treat it a little different on the other end, how much you drain it, and then you typically with ricotta, what I do is I drain it out and then I put a little bit of like the very heavy cream that gets skimmed off the top back into it to get the right creamy texture so it's not crumbly. All right, so that's gonna come up to heat. On days like this when I have a lot of things going on, that's when I'll bring in a lot of milk to process. This is not a terribly hands-on thing to make, but it does require me being present in the kitchen and kind of keeping a loose eye on it. So first thing, I need to mill some soft wheat, some soft white wheat. I am making biscuits and chocolate gravy this morning. You might be like, what? Yes, it is as unctuous as it sounds. It is biscuits with a chocolate gravy sauce. This is an Arkansas thing. Actually not an Arkansas thing that this Arkansas girl grew up with. My mom, when I was a kid, was pretty health conscious. Like, our snacks were like raw broccoli and stuff like that. So we did not eat a lot of food like this whenever I was growing up, but as I became like a teenager and I would go visit other friends' house and like stay the night and stuff like that, that's when I got introduced to chocolate gravy, biscuits and chocolate gravy. It's dessert for breakfast, more or less, and I don't think I have made it a single time since we have lived here. It's not something I've ever made super regularly, but my friend Daniel and his family are in town, and his son, who's the same age as my boys, stayed here last night. And he remembers me making this apparently once whenever he was probably like 5 or something like that. And so he and the boys last night were like, will you please make biscuits and chocolate gravy? And I was like, all right, I'll do that. My kind of philosophy on, you know, junk food in life and sweet treats and stuff like that, and sort of my approach is, I feel like if I can make it at home with real ingredients, like, it's fine. Like, that stuff genuinely, when it's genuinely in moderation, of course you need chocolate gravy for breakfast. It's not going to kill you to eat chocolate gravy for breakfast. If you do it every day, like, maybe that would be a problem. But surely, like, having fresh milled flour and, you know, homegrown ingredients where possible and all of that, like, that's got to be the best way to make a moderate approach to having those things. Oh, this smells so good. This is when I really wish that I had smell-o-vision. Fresh milled flour is just, it makes my mouth water to smell it. It's just so tasty. Making biscuits was one of the places where I held out for a long time on the freshly milled flour thing, because like my regular recipe, it works okay. It's not bad. It's just not ideal. Like, it needs some tweaking. Like the recipe that I've made biscuits with for a very long time, they're real crumbly. If you do them with fresh milled flour, I need to tweak it. And it's this thing of like, I haven't had to look at a recipe for a biscuit in a minute. So I think that's what it is. I mean, I'm 40 now, so like I'm learning this about being alive and being over 40. But what is it about like the resistance to learning new things as you get older? Is it just that factor of like the comfort of knowing exactly what to do? You have to give that up. Maybe that's too much philosophical thoughts for first thing in the morning. All right, I put lemon juice in, and I'm gonna grate this hunk of cold butter, about a cup of it or so. All right, bread machine's starting to work. I do love a gadget that does work that I'm not having to do. That is nice. This grated butter in here. You could just cut this in too. You'd have one less thing to wash, but it does a very thorough job of it. My Aunt Ann and Uncle Bernie, what they do is, she's the one I learned the cheese grater tip from. She actually grates the butter, tosses it in some flour, and then lays it out on like a cookie sheet and freezes it. And so then she takes it all and puts it in a container. So when she's wanting to make biscuits, she just goes and measures a cup of the frozen grated butter. So it's already ready. And every time I'm at this point, I'm like, I should do that. Because you could do a whole lot at once. You could even possibly like use the food processor. If you like froze the butter a little bit and then processed a bunch and then just had it ready. And then you can make biscuits, you know, with one step removed essentially, which would be nice. But I always think about it right here. Then I always have another thing I need to do, so I don't end up doing that. Alright, need some salt. So when I have like my familiar recipe and then I'm trying to learn a new way of doing things, I mean, what I'll end up doing is I'll end up looking online and reading about 10 or 15 other people's opinions of how to do it. So that gives me like a good general range of what's acceptable, because when you're cooking anything, even with baking, I mean, there's like a general range of acceptable. The window's smaller with baking than cooking because of chemistry. And then I'll go from there to kind of know, okay, like for instance, with my regular biscuit recipe, it's too crumbly. That means that it's probably a little too dry, so I need to up the liquid and, you know, make sure that I'm keeping the leaven ratio good. Thankfully, when you know what the range of acceptable is and you stay inside of it, it's kind of like what I was mentioning with the bread machine. It'll be edible. You know, it'll be usable in some form. The risk is very low. I mean, it's not like I'm risking throwing away ingredients. And I mean, even for the sake of learning, if one loaf of bread goes sideways and it's not usable, is that really too high a cost to learn? Like, I don't think so. People pay lots of money to learn things. Like, I can pay the cost of ingredients for a loaf of bread. But when you realize that probably if you stay within the window of acceptable, you'll have edible food, you know, I mean, it kind of just emboldens you a little bit to try. Learning to cook is a lot of just trying and figuring it out. And especially if you're going to start learning to do things, maybe like doing sourdough or doing fresh milled or fermenting or whatever, you know, getting into aging and making cheese and all these things that are really like, these are arts and processes that people did for a very long time with precision, and you learned it from your parents when you were a child. And we're over here having to discern through gobs of regurgitated information, now slop added into it, and we're trying to figure out how to do stuff people used to just do their whole life. I think we should have a little grace for ourselves, don't you? Alright, so the oven is preheated to 450. I've got my butter all cut in here, as well as salt and baking powder. And I have, it's milk with lemon juice in it, so essentially buttermilk. It's going to work the same as buttermilk. And I'm going to start mixing this in. I'm making a big batch of biscuits. I'm not going to make this much chocolate gravy. It's just for 4 boys eating it. But if I'm ever going to make a batch of biscuits, I always just kind of consider what the next day or two at the house looks like. And in this case, if I make extra, that means they can be for lunch, they can be for breakfast tomorrow. I'm already getting my hands dirty. I'm already gonna dirty the pan. It literally takes no extra work to, I mean, I guess I'd grate a little more butter to just double the recipe and go ahead and make extra so that there are fresh made biscuits for the next thing I might need them for. I've actually been making biscuits a lot with lard lately, just because I have a ton of it. I've been processing the stuff we had in our freezer, and I just keep a jar in the fridge. The reason I use butter today is I guess that jar ran out and I didn't go grab another one, so there wasn't enough in there. But by using lard, I'm able to keep my ingredients homegrown over the winter when butter is not as readily available because the cream levels are a lot lower. With having in mind growth, personal growth, I have been looking at all the areas where I can say, oh, I can make this bread with lard or these biscuits with lard because I have it off the farm. We are so not wired that way, like in our culture. I did not grow up on a farm. I did not grow up cooking like this. I did not grow up thinking like this. And one of the, I'm not gonna say it's hard, it's just required intention. One of the things that has been a hard mindset to change, or that's required intention to change, is to just like stop thinking of everything as always available all the time. And I think that having the ability to adjust and say, okay, I might not be able to use the recipe that I've always made, but can I adjust to use what I have available, or to use what's better for me to use? It is saying, okay, I like this recipe with butter. I have absolutely no problem using butter, but if butter's not available and lard is, can I figure out how to make that work better? And it's really assessing the places that you might not know how to do things and say, okay, how can I easily approach this? Because I am enthusiastic on the front end about anything that's new. And so like I can be like, yeah, I'm gonna make cheese, so let me go buy the stuff to set up a cheese cave, and let me go buy a press, or we gotta build this, and I'll look at the big things, but really the hurdle that I need to overcome is the discipline of getting in the kitchen and processing milk 3 times a week. That's really the thing. And again, spring catches me off guard. Oh, I have to completely rework my schedule to accommodate this thing that I've had to do. I've done this before. Like, I've done this many times before. It's a seasonal thing. So right now my goal is making soft cheeses and yogurt and cream and ice cream, and consistently doing that for a few weeks to really get the routine in place. And then I'll start looking at the stuff I need to buy, because frankly, buying things gives us dopamine. The grueling process of learning things that we don't know how to do and confronting our overwhelm and all that stuff, that's not dopamine. That does not feel good. And if you do the buying first and then you have to do the not feel good part, that's where a lot of people end up with a lot of tools in their cabinet that they've never used. Or, you start something you don't finish. If that's not everybody struggles with that. My husband, not his problem at all. It is my problem. That is 100% my problem. I'm just pausing like every, 8 or 9 minutes and giving my milk a stir and tipping it to make sure that we're on track. It's still slow and steady rising. Right. Now, you could obviously do this in a food processor. If you're just wanting to learn how to make biscuits, I have shown my biscuit making process multiple times. I'll link a video. And you don't have to start with fresh milled flour. If you are doing fresh milled flour and you have a great biscuit recipe that you're like, hey, this is fail proof and you should try it, link it for me, please, because I am definitely needing that. I'm gonna go ahead and stick my skillet with some butter into the oven to melt it, and then I'll cut these biscuits and put it in there and cook them. Y'all, my oven just broke. I've called the handyman in. He's changing his plans for the day. I can't not have an oven. Like, that is... I can give up a lot of things, but if I can help it, I need my oven. Since I have biscuits rolled out and I need to bake them, I'm going to plug up one of my roaster ovens. This isn't ideal, but having disappointed boys who are looking forward to chocolate gravy, not having chocolate gravy is less ideal. The ideal life of having a real kitchen. I just plugged this in. This is a really short cord and I don't have space for it on my counters right now, so I put it in this chair and I'm preheating this. I'm gonna go ahead and do 400. Normally for biscuits I bake them around like 350, 375, but this doesn't hold heat as well, so I'm just gonna put it a little higher. I do not love roaster ovens for baking breads, but like there was a period like when we were remodeling our old kitchen, I didn't have an oven for probably like 8 weeks or something like that, and I baked bread in them. You can do it. When my oven is full and I need it, I will, but usually I will save them for like roasting meats or potatoes or doing broths, because I think they do better at that. Last night we were in the kitchen cooking and we heard this pop, and Michaela said, "What was that?" And I was like, I don't know, it sounded like when a light bulb burns out. And we were looking around and you could smell just like that slight tinge of burning. And I mean, I was trying to figure out what it was to make sure nothing was going to catch on fire. And we couldn't figure out what it was. Preheated the oven this morning and it was just like stalling at 340. And I melted my butter in there. I was like, why is this not raising up? And that's when I turned it off and turned it back on, and then the temperature just started falling, and I was like, no, not my precious, I need you. All right, we're gonna try this. I don't know how well these biscuits are gonna turn out, but they're gonna be covered in chocolate gravy, so I imagine they will be just fine as far as a vehicle for that goes. Yeah. You want to go ahead and cut out a couple more of these? Try to do them close together. Let me not get distracted from my milk. So I melted this butter in here, which kind of helps grease the pan, and then I just brush it on top. Ben, do you want to do this job? Yeah. Yes, please. Yes, please. Thank you. Y'all. Okay. My pan wouldn't fit in my roaster, so I have now moved my biscuits into a different pan, and they are cooking in there. I am determined to have a productive kitchen day. All right, chocolate gravy. I've got cocoa powder. I buy this on Amazon. It's a better price for like good cocoa powder than buying it at the store. And we actually go through a pretty good bit of cocoa powder between baking and making chocolate syrup. I make my kids chocolate syrup too. Put a third a cup of that in. I will write this recipe down and put a link to it below so you guys can print it out. I'm typically fairly relaxed on the measurements of things. A few tablespoons of flour, a cup of sugar. I'm just putting all of this in a kind of lowish pan. I'm gonna do a good pinch of salt, a cup and a half of milk, and then I'm gonna turn the heat up underneath this to like a good medium. And then I want to just whisk this and cook it until it thickens. All right, so this happens pretty quick. I was actually sitting over there editing and it kind of got a little bit away from me, but this is gonna start simmering, and as it does, it's gonna thicken. You can see here that it's like way more gravy texture. You wanna whisk it pretty consistently so it doesn't get lumpy. I've just done this for maybe like 8 or 9 minutes, and it's nice and thick. So I just turned the heat off of it, and at this point I'm gonna add some butter and melt that in, and some vanilla extract. I'm gonna do like a few tablespoons of butter. Measuring that. If it gets a little too thick, just add another splash of milk to loosen it up. And if it gets a little too loose, just add a little bit more flour and it'll thicken back up. All right, vanilla extract. I've also got a video showing how to make that if you have not seen it. That, my friends, is chocolate gravy. You might not have known of such a thing, but now you know it exists. Whether you want it to be a part of your life is up to you. So I find being an American interesting when it comes to food culture, because obviously like different regions have different like things. And there was a video I watched some years ago that was talking about different food from different regions, and chocolate gravy was actually the thing they listed as the food from Arkansas, which I thought that was interesting, because like I said, I didn't eat chocolate gravy until I was like well into my teenage years. It was not a given that everybody ate it. I think it's more of an Appalachian thing, actually. I'm not sure. Have you heard of chocolate gravy? But this topic will come up. I'm going to taste this and see. The topic will come up about chocolate gravy, and I'll say, yeah, chocolate gravy is an Arkansas thing, and people are like, what is it? I'm like, it's chocolate gravy. And they're like, right, but what is it? And I'm like, it is gravy that is chocolate. Like, and they're like, what is it for? I'm like, you put it on a biscuit. I don't know. It's chocolate gravy. I mean, I guess it's kind of like obviously a desserty thing, but it tastes kind of like, it tastes kind of like chocolate pudding. Texture's a little different. more like gravy. I mean, it really is just like the texture of what you would expect from a gravy, like white gravy or brown gravy, like where you're making it with fat and flour, except for you have obviously the sugar in there and then the cocoa making it chocolate. All right, boy, your biscuits are done. You want to grab a plate?
Okay, bye.
All right, I'm gonna show our friends this. The biscuits didn't turn out bad. Look at that, that's pretty good. Now that is fresh milled, so it's, I don't know, I think that's pretty nice looking texture. Y'all want 2 or 1?
2, please. 2, please. Let's start off with the 1.
Okay. All right. What do y'all think? Does that look good? Who's gonna be the first taste tester? I guess we'll give it to Cam since he's our guest. And he remembers us from being a child. Here you go.
I do too. Me 3.
Me 11.
It's hot. Sorry.
Not really hot, but it's really good.
Thank you.
Wire.
Well, that's not good then, huh?
That's not good at all, buddy.
I'm afraid my kitchen is no longer the video studio that it was just an hour ago.
Now it's a fire hazard.
Now it's a fire hazard in a construction zone. Do you feel confident in fixing?
Well, I'm gonna try just rewiring it.
Yeah.
And we'll turn it on and see.
Yeah. Okay.
We're about to find out.
Well, I'm gonna do my best to finish this cheese because I'm not gonna let this waste, and then I'm gonna clear out of their way. So I have my acid ready. My milk just hit 180. I'm actually looking for 185. I double checked my notes. Whoa, I poured that in just instant. All right, this is going off the heat and getting covered. And it has to sit for like 20-30 minutes, something like that, and then I'll strain it. That's so satisfying. You see how yellow that is? It's because it's springtime and the cows are eating fresh grass. Lots of beta carotene in the milk. Cover that up. All right, so it's been about 40 minutes or so. I cleared out of here. I'm about to strain this cheese off. Maya fixed the oven. He is a marvel for sure. I'm so thankful because I am not a tinkerer at all. He pulled it out, rewired it, preheated it. It got all the way up to 450. So we're going to just tentatively use that because if I don't have to buy a new oven, that would be great. In other positive news, I think the bread is usable. It definitely rose too much and then fell, so I know now what I need to do for the settings. I need less rise time. I looked in there probably about 20 minutes before it started baking, and it was like the perfect rise at that point. Yeah, there's my big tall loaf. That's super huge. If you happen to have a recipe for the Zojirushi bread machine and fresh milled flour, I would love to know it. My kids are not super enthusiastic about anything that has a lot of additives in it, like seeds or anything. You know, I set out this morning to begin again in making videos for the Farmer's Table because I have so many ideas and so many things I want to share with you guys, and I thought, you know what, I'm doing a lot today. I'm just going to turn the camera on and share it. And I could have been deterred multiple times today. I'm glad I wasn't. Honestly, things don't have to be perfect. And especially whenever it comes to starting or restarting or learning something new or pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, it's rarely going to be perfect. So sometimes you got to just rip the band-aid off and do it. Thank you for hanging out with me today in my chaotic kitchen. I bless you. Until next time.